You want me to do what now? Dr. Samantha Sam Rodriguez raised an eyebrow at the holographic projection of Principal Zixnax, her gelatinous form quivering with what Sam had learned to interpret as excitement. Demonstrate human anatomy to our xenobiology class, the alien's voice modulator chirped. It's a unique opportunity, Dr. Rodriguez. Our students have never seen a Deathworlder up close before. Sam pinched the bridge of her nose, already feeling a headache coming on. Zix, buddy, pal. Did you forget the little incident from last week? You know, when I sneezed and half the faculty thought I was having an aneurysm. The principal's gelatinous form rippled in what might have been a chuckle. Oh, that was just a minor misunderstanding. Besides, this is for science. Right, Sam drawled, because nothing says science like traumatizing a bunch of alien kids with my terrifying Deathworld body. Excellent. I knew you'd agree, Zixnax burbled, completely missing or choosing to ignore Sam's sarcasm. The class starts in one standard rotation. Don't be late. Aye. As the hologram flickered out, Sam flopped back onto her ergonomically designed, definitely not made for humans chair. What have I gotten myself into this time? She glanced around her small office, taking in the various alien artifacts and mementos she'd collected during her time at the Galactic University of Xenobiology. A holo frame on her desk cycled through images of Earth, lush forests, sprawling cities, and vast oceans. Sam felt a pang of homesickness, quickly followed by a surge of determination. Come on, Rodriguez, she muttered to herself. You didn't travel halfway across the galaxy to chicken out now. How bad could it be? As if in answer, her computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from her colleague, Dr. Skrilk Tech, a cephalopod-like being from a water world in the Andromeda Galaxy. Heard about your upcoming anatomy demonstration, the message read. Don't forget to warn them about the bones. Nearly gave poor Blurp a heart attack, all three of them, when I mentioned human skeletal structure last semester. Good luck. Ah, Sam groaned. Great, just great. One standard rotation later, Sam found herself standing in front of a classroom full of wide-eyed and, in some cases, wide-eye-stalked alien students. The room was a riot of colors, textures, and appendages that would make a Terran modern artist weep with envy. All right, Class Principal Zixnax's voice modulator crackled through the room's speakers. Today we have a very special guest. Dr. Samantha Rodriguez is a real live Deathworlder from the planet Earth. She'll be demonstrating human anatomy for us today. A chorus of excited chirps, whistles, and what sounded suspiciously like terrified squeaking filled the air. Sam plastered on her best "I'm not going to eat you" smile and waved. Hello, everyone. As Principal Zixnax mentioned, I'm Dr. Rodriguez. But you can call me Sam. I'm here to show you that humans aren't as scary as you might think. She paused, then added under her breath, at least not all the time. A tentative appendage rose from the back of the class. Sam nodded encouragingly. Yes, you there. What's your name? Blorp, came the reply, accompanied by a sound like a wet balloon deflating. Nice to meet you, Blorp. What's your question? Is it true that humans have bones inside their bodies? Blorp asked, his gelatinous form quivering with a mixture of fear and fascination. Sam grinned. That's right. In fact, we have 206 of them. A collective gasp rippled through the classroom, followed by the distinct thud of someone fainting. Sam glanced over to see a small, furry creature with 6 legs and antennae sprawled dramatically on the floor. Oh, come on, she muttered. I haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. Zixnax's voice crackled through the speakers again. Perhaps a visual aid would help, Dr. Rodriguez. Sam nodded, tapping a button on her wrist computer. A holographic skeleton materialized next to her, rotating slowly to give the class a 360-degree view. As you can see, Sam began, gesturing to the hologram, our bones form an internal support structure. They protect our organs, allow us to move. And she was interrupted by another thud, followed quickly by 2 more. 3 more students had apparently decided that consciousness was overrated. Sam sighed. Okay, maybe we should start with something a little less intense. How about the circulatory system? The hologram shifted, now displaying a network of arteries and veins coursing through the human body. Sam couldn't help but notice that the remaining conscious students had edged their desks back a few inches. Now, humans have a closed circulatory system, she explained, trying to keep her tone light and non-threatening. Our heart pumps blood through these vessels to deliver oxygen and nutrients to our cells. A timid voice piped up from the front row. Excuse me, Dr. Rodriguez. What's a heart? Sam blinked. Oh, right, well, It's an organ, that. The hologram helpfully zoomed in on the heart, displaying its internal chambers and the flow of blood. The sound of bodies hitting the floor was practically percussion at this point. For the love of Sam muttered, then raised her voice. Is anyone still conscious? A single eye stalk poked up from behind a desk, attached to a trembling, iridescent blob. I think so. Sam pinched the bridge of her nose again. Okay, new plan. Let's talk about something nice and safe, like human hair. Yeah, that's harmless, right? The eye stalk bobbed in what might have been a nod. Great, Sam said with forced cheer. So human hair is made of a protein called keratin. It grows from follicles in our skin, and the eye stalk disappeared with a soft plop. Sam threw her hands up in exasperation. Oh, come on. What could possibly be scary about hair? Zixnax's voice crackled through the speakers once more. I believe the concept of dead cells growing out of living tissue might have been a bit much for poor Glimmer there. You've got to be kidding me, Sam groaned. She looked around the classroom, now resembling nothing so much as the aftermath of a particularly rowdy alien frat party. Bodies of various shapes, sizes, and consistencies were strewn about, some twitching occasionally, others eerily still. Well, she said to no one in particular. I guess that concludes today's lesson on Basic Anatomy 101. How to clear a room in 10 minutes or less. As if on cue, the classroom door slid open with a soft hiss. A tall, reptilian alien with iridescent scales and forearms strode in, taking in the scene with an expression that somehow managed to convey both amusement and exasperation despite the alien's lack of recognizable facial features. Ah, Dr. Rodriguez, the newcomer said, their translator rendering the hisses and clicks into a smooth, slightly accented voice. I see you've had the pleasure of introducing our students to the wonders of human biology. Sam turned to face the alien, relief washing over her. Professor T. Zix. Thank goodness. I was beginning to think I'd have to call in a hazmat team to clear out all the unconscious bodies. T. Zix's scales rippled in what Sam had learned was their species equivalent of laughter. No need for such drastic measures, though I must say I'm impressed. I've never seen quite so many students rendered unconscious in such a short span of time, not even during my infamous lecture on quantum entanglement and its effects on cross-dimensional travel. Glad to know I've set a new record, Sam said dryly, though I'm not sure most alien students traumatized in a single class period is a title I want on my resume. T. Zix waved a dismissive hand. Nonsense. It's an achievement to be proud of. After all, it's not every day one gets to witness the raw power of Deathworld biology in action. Sam snorted. Raw power. T. Zix. I barely got through explaining bones before they started dropping like flies, which, by the way, is an Earth expression I now realize might be considered offensive in present company. The reptilian professor's scales shimmered with amusement. No offense taken, I assure you. Now, shall we revive our unfortunate pupils? I find a mild electric shock usually does the trick. Electric shock, Sam's eyes widened. Isn't that a bit extreme? T. Zix tilted their head, confusion evident in their posture. Is it? How else would one rouse a group of unconscious beings? Sam opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing she was about to step into another cultural minefield. You know what? Never mind. Let's just wake them up gently, shall we? Over the next few minutes, Sam and T. Zix moved through the classroom, coaxing the various alien students back to consciousness. Some required a gentle prod, others a soft word, and in one memorable case, a quick blast from a small atomi that the T. Zix assured her contained nothing more harmful than aerosolized caffeine substitute. As the last student, a being that looked unsettlingly like a sentient fern, finally stirred, Sam turned to address the groggy class. Right, she said, clapping her hands together and immediately regretting it, as several students flinched at the sharp sound. So, that was an experience. I think we've all learned something today. A tentative appendage rose from the back of the room. It was Blorp, looking a little worse for wear, but apparently still curious. What exactly have we learned, Dr. Rodriguez? Sam paused, considering her answer carefully. Well, Blorp, I'd say we've learned that sometimes the things that's scariest to us are often just different. And different doesn't always mean dangerous. She gestured to herself. Yes, humans have bones inside our bodies. We have complex circulatory systems and organs that might seem alien to you. But at our core, we're not so different. We all want to learn, to grow, to understand the universe around us. T. Zix nodded approvingly, their scales taking on a warm, golden hue. Well said, Dr. Rodriguez. Perhaps there's hope for interspecies understanding yet. Just then, Principal Zixnax's voice crackled through the speakers once more. Excellent work, everyone. Now, who's ready for part 2 of our xenobiology series, Human Digestive Systems and the Miracle of Stomach Acid? The sound of mass panic that followed was, Sam had to admit, almost impressive in its intensity. As students scrambled for the exit, some literally oozing under the door in their haste, she couldn't help but laugh. "You know," she said to T6, who was watching the exodus with what seemed to be fond exasperation, "maybe we should rethink this whole hands-on approach to xenobiology." T6's scales rippled in agreement. Perhaps. Though I must admit, I haven't seen the students this energetic since we cancelled the annual quantum physics exam. Sam grinned. Well, if nothing else, at least we've given them a lesson they'll never forget. As the last student disappeared through the door or window, in the case of one particularly determined hovering jellyfish-like being, Sam and T6 were left alone in the now eerily quiet classroom. "So," Sam said, breaking the silence, "same time next week." T6's scales flashed a brilliant array of colors that Sam interpreted as a mix of amusement and resignation. "I believe, Dr. Rodriguez, that you may have just revolutionized our entire educational system." "Great," Sam replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I've always wanted to be a revolutionary." "Do you think causa of mass alien fainting incidents will look good on my intergalactic CV?" T6 made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "I believe, my dear colleague, that after today's performance, you could put just about anything on your CV and still be the talk of the galactic academic community." As they made their way out of the classroom, Sam couldn't help but shake her head in disbelief. "You know, when I signed up for this interstellar exchange program, I thought I'd be doing groundbreaking research, not whatever this was." "Ah, but isn't this the very essence of groundbreaking research?" T6 replied. "Pushing boundaries, challenging preconceptions, inducing mass unconsciousness in the name of science." Sam snorted. "When you put it that way, it almost sounds noble." They paused at the end of the hallway, where it split off towards the faculty offices and the main exit. T6 turned to Sam, their expression suddenly serious, or at least as serious as a being with no discernible facial features could look. "In all seriousness, Dr. Rodriguez, I believe what happened today, while unconventional, was incredibly valuable. These students have lived their entire lives hearing stories about the terrifying Deathworlders. Today they saw one up close. They learned that yes, humans are different, but also that you're not the monsters they've been led to believe." Sam felt a lump form in her throat. Even if that lesson came with a side of unconsciousness, T6's scales shimmered with warmth, especially then. They'll remember this day for the rest of their lives, and when they think of humans, they won't just think of the scary stories. They'll think of you, the human who tried so hard to teach them, who showed patience and humor in the face of their fear. "Wow," Sam said, genuinely touched. Thank you, T6. I needed to hear that." The reptilian professor nodded. "Now, I suggest you prepare yourself. Once word of today's event spreads, I have a feeling you'll be in high demand. There's nothing the academic community loves more than a good scandal, after all." Sam groaned. "Great, just what I always wanted: intergalactic academic fame for being the Deathworlder who knocked out an entire class with the power of basic anatomy." T6's scales rippled with amusement. "Look on the bright side, Dr. Rodriguez. At least you'll never have to worry about falling asleep during your own lectures." As they parted ways, Sam heading towards the exit and what she hoped would be a very large, very strong cup of coffee, or the nearest alien equivalent, she couldn't help but smile. It hadn't been the day she'd expected, but maybe, just maybe, she'd made a difference. The next morning, Sam awoke to the incessant beeping of her communicator. Bleary-eyed and still half asleep, she fumbled for the device, nearly knocking over a potted plant that she was pretty sure hadn't been carnivorous when she bought it. "Dr. Rodriguez speaking," she mumbled, trying to sound more awake than she felt. "Sam, oh, thank goodness you're awake." It was Zixnax, sounding even more excitable than usual. "You need to come to the campus immediately. You'll see when you get here." Before Sam could ask for clarification, the line went dead. She stared at the communicator for a moment, then sighed. "I have a bad feeling about this." 30 minutes later, freshly showered and caffeinated thanks to a concoction that she was pretty sure violated several laws of physics, Sam arrived at the university. The moment she stepped onto the campus grounds, she knew something was different. Students of all species were gathered in small groups, buzzing with excitement. As she passed, conversations hushed, and she could feel dozens of eyes and other sensory organs following her progress. It was unnerving. As Sam approached the main administration building, she spotted a familiar gelatinous form waiting at the entrance. "Zixnax," she called out. "What's going on? Why is everyone staring at me like I'm some kind of celebrity?" The principal finished, her voice modulator practically vibrating with excitement. "Because, my dear Dr. Rodriguez, that's exactly what you are." Sam blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Zixnax gestured for Sam to follow her inside. As they made their way through the corridors, the principal explained, "Word of your unconventional teaching methods has spread like wildfire across the campus. And not just our campus, mind you. We've received inquiries from universities across 3 galaxies." They entered Zixnax's office, where a large holo screen dominated one wall. It was currently displaying what appeared to be some sort of news broadcast. Sam's jaw dropped as she recognized herself on the screen, albeit in a highly stylized, almost heroic pose. "Deathworlder revolutionizes xenobiology education," Sam read aloud, her voice a mix of disbelief and horror. "What in the name of? Isn't it wonderful?" Zixnax burbled, oblivious to Sam's growing panic. "You've become an overnight sensation in the academic world. Everyone wants to know about the human who can teach alien anatomy through, what did they call it?" "Ah yes, controlled shock therapy." Sam pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture she was starting to think might become permanent. "Zix, I didn't. That's not what happened at all. Details, the principal waved a gelatinous appendage dismissively. "The important thing is, you've put our university on the map. We've already received a flood of new applications from students across the galaxy, all hoping to learn from the famous Dr. Rodriguez." Famous for what? Sam exclaimed. "Traumatizing a classroom full of kids." "For bringing excitement back to education," Zixnax replied enthusiastically. "For showing that learning can be an adventure, a challenge to be overcome. You've inspired a whole new generation of xenobiologists, Dr. Rodriguez." Sam collapsed into a nearby chair, which helpfully morphed to accommodate her human physiology. "This can't be happening," she muttered. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Before anyone could respond, it slid open to reveal Professor T. Zix, looking as unflappable as ever. "Ah, Dr. Rodriguez," the reptilian professor said, their scales shimmering with what might have been amusement. "I see you've heard the news." Sam looked up at her colleague, a plea in her eyes. "T. Zix, please tell me this is all some sort of elaborate prank. Maybe a weird alien custom I don't know about yet." T. Zix's scales rippled in what Sam had come to recognize as their version of a chuckle. "I'm afraid not, my dear colleague. You've become quite the sensation. In fact, I've just come from a meeting with the Galactic Board of Education. They're very interested in your innovative teaching methods." "Oh no," Sam groaned. "Please don't tell me." "They want you to develop a new curriculum," T. Zix continued, their voice a mix of pride and mischief. "Something they're calling extreme xenobiology, the Deathworlder approach." For a moment, Sam just sat there, stunned into silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, including her own, she burst out laughing. It wasn't a polite chuckle or a nervous titter, but a full-blown, tears in her eyes, gasping for breath laugh. Zixnax and Tease exchanged confused glances. Dr. Rodriguez, the principal, ventured cautiously. "Are you all right?" Sam waved a hand, trying to catch her breath. "I'm fine," she managed between giggles. "It's just, of all the ways I thought my career might go, intergalactic sensation for fainting aliens wasn't exactly on the list." T-Zix's scales took on a warm, golden hue. "Perhaps not, but you must admit, it's certainly more interesting than spending your days in a lab peering at alien cell structures." Sam's laughter finally subsided, and she wiped her eyes. "You know what? You're right. This is crazy, and probably a terrible idea, but why not? Let's see where this extreme xenobiology thing goes." Zixnax's form quivered with excitement. "Wonderful. I'll inform the board right away. Oh, and Dr. Rodriguez, you might want to prepare yourself. The Galactic News Network wants to interview you this afternoon." As the principal bustled out of the office, Sam turned to T. Zix. "What have I gotten myself into?" The reptilian professor's scales shimmered with what might have been a smile. "The adventure of a lifetime, I'd say. And who knows, you might just change the face of intergalactic education in the process." Sam shook her head, a wry smile on her face. "Well, when you put it that way. All right, T. Zix, let's go make some aliens faint in the name of science." Over the next few months, Sam's life became a whirlwind of activity. The extreme xenobiology curriculum took off in ways no one could have predicted. Universities across the galaxy clamored to offer the course, and Sam found herself traveling to distant worlds, giving guest lectures that were equal parts education and entertainment. She learned to tailor her presentations to different species, discovering that what caused one alien to faint in terror might fascinate another. The gloop beings of Zerg and VII, for instance, were utterly enthralled by the concept of human bone structure, while the crystalline inhabitants of Lumina Prime found the idea of soft, squishy organs utterly terrifying. Sam's favorite moment came during a lecture on human reproduction to a group of budding xenobiologists from the binary star system of Alpha Centauri. As she explained the basics of human pregnancy, she noticed a group of plant-like beings in the back of the auditorium, beginning to glow an alarming shade of purple. "Is everything all right back there?" she asked, pausing her explanation. One of the beings raised a leaf-like appendage. "Apologies, Professor Rodriguez," it said, its voice sounding like rustling leaves. "We're just processing. You're saying that human offspring grow inside the body of one parent? For 9 months. Sam nodded, bracing herself for the inevitable fainting. To her surprise, the plant beings began to vibrate, their leaves rustling furiously. For a moment, she feared she'd triggered some sort of allergic reaction. Then she realized they were applauding. "Remarkable," the spokesperson exclaimed. "Such resilience. Such dedication to one's offspring. Truly, humans are the most fascinating species we've encountered." From that day on, Sam made it a point to end every lecture with a reminder: remember, class, just because something seems strange or scary at first doesn't mean it's not amazing. The universe is full of wonders, and sometimes the most wonderful things are the ones that challenge our preconceptions. As her fame grew, Sam received offers from prestigious research institutions and even a few propositions for intergalactic book deals. But she found herself increasingly drawn back to the classroom, where she could see the immediate impact of her work. One particularly memorable day, about a year after her infamous first lecture, Sam stood before a packed auditorium. Students from dozens of species filled the seats, their excited chatter creating a symphony of chirps, whistles, and other sounds she still couldn't quite identify. "All right, settle down, everyone," she called out, her voice amplified by the room's acoustics. "Today we're going to talk about something really exciting: human immune systems." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Sam grinned, now used to this reaction. "That's right, folks. Get ready for a wild ride through the world of white blood cells, antibodies, and the ongoing war happening inside every human body." As she launched into her lecture, complete with holographic demonstrations and the occasional mild shock, both literal and figurative, Sam couldn't help but marvel at how far she'd come. The students no longer fainted in mass, though there was still the occasional dramatic swoon, and their questions had become increasingly insightful. Halfway through her explanation of how vaccines work, a tentacle shot up from the middle of the auditorium. Sam recognized the student as Zorp, a cephalopod-like being from an oceanic world. "Yes, Zorp," she said, pausing her presentation. "Professor Rodriguez," Zorp began, its voice bubbling through its translator. "Are you saying that humans deliberately introduce weakened pathogens into their bodies to strengthen their immune systems?" Sam nodded, bracing herself for the usual reaction of horror. Instead, Zorp's tentacles waved in what she had learned was an expression of awe. That's brilliant," Zorp exclaimed. "It's like training for a battle before the war even starts." A murmur of agreement rippled through the auditorium. Sam felt a warmth spreading in her chest that had nothing to do with her naturally high human body temperature. "Exactly, Zorp," she said, beaming. "Our immune systems are constantly adapting, learning, and preparing for new threats. In a way, every human is carrying around their own personal army of microscopic defenders." The rest of the lecture passed in a blur of questions, explanations, and the occasional burst of alien applause which, in the case of the gelatinous students, involved a lot of enthusiastic jiggling. As the class ended, and the students filed out, chattering excitedly about white blood cells and antibodies, Sam began packing up her materials. "Quite the performance, Dr. Rodriguez," a familiar voice said from behind her. She turned to see Professor T6, their scales shimmering with what she now recognized as pride. "Thanks, T6," she replied, grinning. "I think I'm finally getting the hang of this extreme xenobiology thing." The reptilian professor nodded. "Indeed, you've come a long way from causing mass fainting incidents, though I must admit, a small part of me misses the excitement of those early days." Sam laughed. "Well, if you're feeling nostalgic, I could always bring back the detailed lectures on human digestion. Remember how the gloop beings reacted to the concept of stomach acid? T-Zix's scales rippled in amusement. Ah yes, how could I forget? It took weeks to get all the slime out of the lecture hall. As they made their way out of the auditorium, Sam noticed a small group of students lingering near the exit. They were an eclectic bunch, a hovering crystalline being, a furry creature with more eyes than she could count, and a plant-like entity that seemed to be photosynthesizing under the hallway lights. Professor Rodriguez, the crystalline being, chimed, its facets glinting nervously. We were wondering if we could ask you something. Of course, Sam replied, curious. What's on your minds? The furry creature stepped forward, its many eyes blinking in sequence. We've been talking. And? Well, we want to know more about Earth, about humans. Not just the biology, but everything. Sam exchanged a glance with T-Zix, whose scales had taken on a deep, thoughtful blue. Everything, she asked. That's quite a broad topic. The plant-like student rustled its leaves. We know it's a lot to ask, but you've shown us that humans are so much more than the Deathworlders we've always heard about. We want to understand your culture, your history, your art, your music. The crystalline being chimed in. We've heard rumors about something called rock and roll. Sam felt the warm feeling in her chest again, stronger this time. She looked at the eager faces and other sensory appendages of the students, then back at T-Zix. The reptilian professor's scales were now a bright, encouraging gold. Well, Sam said, a slow smile spreading across her face, I think we might need to expand our curriculum. The next few years passed in a whirlwind of activity. Sam's extreme xenobiology course evolved into a comprehensive Terran studies program, the first of its kind in the galaxy. She brought in colleagues from Earth, historians, artists, musicians, chefs, to give the alien students a full picture of human culture. There were, of course, some hiccups along the way. The day Sam introduced the concept of human sports nearly ended in disaster when a group of enthusiastic Zorgan students tried to recreate a football tackle and ended up embedded in a wall. The music appreciation class had to be temporarily suspended after a rendition of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony caused a species of crystalline beings to enter a state of transcendent ecstasy that lasted for 3 days. But for every mishap, there were dozens of moments that made it all worthwhile. Sam would never forget the sight of a group of gelatinous beings attempting to perform Swan Lake, or the sound of a choir of methane-breathing aliens singing a surprisingly harmonious version of Bohemian Rhapsody. As the program grew, so did the understanding between species. Students who had once fainted at the mere mention of human anatomy were now eagerly discussing the finer points of Terran philosophy, debating the merits of various Earth cuisines, though Sam had to put her foot down when a group of carnivorous plant beings got a little too excited about the concept of salad. One day, about 5 years after her first disastrous anatomy lesson, Sam found herself standing on a stage in the university's grand auditorium. Before her sat not just students and faculty, but diplomats and leaders from across the galaxy. She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement that reminded her of that first day. Distinguished guests, colleagues and students, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. 5 years ago, I stood in a classroom not far from here and accidentally terrified a group of alien students with a simple lesson on human anatomy. A ripple of laughter went through the audience. Sam smiled, remembering how far they'd all come. That day could have been the end of my career in xenobiology. Instead, it was just the beginning. What started as a series of misunderstandings and fainting spells has grown into something I never could have imagined. A bridge between worlds. A chance for beings from across the galaxy to truly understand one another. She gestured to the diverse crowd before her. Look around you. In this room we have beings from planets that have been at odds for centuries, now sitting side by side. United in their curiosity about a little blue planet called Earth, we have students who once trembled at the thought of Deathworlders now eagerly planning their exchange semesters. On Earth, Sam paused, feeling a lump forming in her throat. But this program isn't just about teaching aliens about humans. It's about all of us learning from each other. Every day I'm amazed by the insights my students bring. The ways they challenge me to see my own world through new eyes, or eye stalks, or sensory tentacles, or whatever the case may be. A chuckle rippled through the audience. Sam saw T-Zix in the front row, their scales shimmering with pride. As we move forward, expanding this program to universities across the galaxy, I want us all to remember one crucial thing. The universe is vast and full of wonders, but nothing is more wonderful than the moment when we reach across the gulf of our differences and find common ground. She smiled, looking out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some utterly alien, all united in this moment. So here's to the future of intergalactic education. May we never stop learning, never stop questioning, and never, ever faint at the sight of a little human anatomy. The applause that followed was deafening, a cacophony of claps, whistles, chirps, and other sounds that Sam had learned to recognize as expressions of joy from a dozen different species. As she left the stage, she was immediately enveloped in a gentle, gelatinous hug from Zixnax. "Oh, Dr. Rodriguez," the principal burbled, her form quivering with emotion. Who would have thought that one little fainting incident would lead to all this? Sam laughed, carefully extracting herself from the embrace. "Certainly not me. Though I have to say, Zix, I'm glad you talked me into that first lecture, even if it did nearly give me a heart attack." "Ah yes," Zix chimed in, approaching with their scales gleaming a warm gold. "I believe that lecture is now required viewing for all new xenobiology students. A classic example of how not to introduce alien species to each other." "Hey," Sam protested, but she was grinning. "I'd like to see you do better with a room full of aliens who think you're going to eat them." As they bantered, a small group of students approached, looking nervous but excited. Sam recognized them as the first graduates of the Terran Studies program, now preparing for their exchange semester on Earth. Professor Rodriguez, one of them, a floating cloud of sentient gas, pulsed gently. "We just wanted to say thank you for everything." Sam felt that now familiar warmth spreading through her chest. "No need to thank me. You're the ones doing the hard work, bridging the gap between our worlds. But we couldn't have done it without you." Another student, a being that looked like a cross between a tree and a crystal formation, chimed in. "You showed us that different doesn't mean dangerous, that understanding is possible even across the vastness of space," and added a third, a multi-limbed creature with iridescent fur. "You taught us that sometimes the most important lessons come from the moments when everything seems to go wrong." Sam laughed, remembering all the mishaps and misunderstandings that had led to this moment. "Well, in that case, I'd say you've all learned the most important lesson of all. The universe is full of surprises, and it's how we handle those surprises that truly matters." As the students moved away, chattering excitedly about their upcoming trip to Earth, Sam felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Principal Zixnax, looking as serious as a gelatinous being could look. "Dr. Rodriguez," Zixnax began, her voice modulator pitched low, "the Galactic Council of Education has been in touch. They're proposing something rather extraordinary." Sam raised an eyebrow. "More extraordinary than teaching a bunch of aliens about human anatomy and somehow turning it into a galaxy-wide cultural exchange program." Zixnax's form rippled in what might have been a chuckle. "Point taken. But yes, I'd say this is even more extraordinary. They want to establish an intergalactic university, a place where beings from all corners of the galaxy can come together to learn, not just about each other's biology, but about each other's cultures, histories, sciences, everything." Sam felt her jaw drop. Wow, that's incredible. But what does it have to do with me?" Zix, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward, their scales shimmering with excitement. "They want you to lead it, Dr. Rodriguez, to be the first dean of the Intergalactic University of Xenocultural Studies." For a moment, Sam just stood there, stunned. Then, slowly, a grin spread across her face. "Well," she said, "I suppose I should start planning my first lecture. Any bets on how many students we can make faint on the first day?" As Zixnax and Zix laughed, Sam looked out over the auditorium, still buzzing with excitement and possibility. She thought back to that first day, to the terrified human standing in front of a classroom of equally terrified aliens. She thought of all the mishaps and misunderstandings, the breakthroughs and moments of connection. And she realized that this grand, ridiculous, wonderful adventure was exactly why she had become a xenobiologist in the first place. To explore, to learn, to bridge the gaps between worlds. "All right," she said, turning back to her colleagues with a determined smile. "Let's go change the galaxy, one fainting alien at a time." As they walked out of the auditorium and into the bright alien sunlight, Sam couldn't help but laugh. Who would have thought that a simple anatomy lesson could lead to all this? But then again, she mused, that was the beauty of science, of exploration, of reaching out across the stars. You never knew what you might find, what connections you might make, what wonders you might discover. And sometimes, just sometimes, those discoveries could change everything. Sam looked up at the sky, at the countless stars twinkling in the alien atmosphere, each one holding the promise of new worlds, new species, new understandings. And she smiled, ready for whatever the universe had in store next.